Hello, everyone. This is High Priestess Tana, and thank you for tuning in to Tana Temple Healing Works. I am coming back again with another video, y'all. This was crazy, and this is long overdue since we've been talking about Michael Jackson lately because of the recent biopic called Michael, which is out now, and it's been out since April, late April. If you haven't seen that, please go check that out. But this is another Michael Jackson biopic that a lot of people may have not seen because honestly, it's almost like hard to find or obscure at this point because it was so bad, according to a lot of people's feedback and criticism. And first and foremost, I want to say happy Juneteenth. And I will also hope, and well, I also want to let everyone know that I love you all. Thank you for supporting my channel. I hope all is well with everyone. And I had changed my setup, so I'm in a different space of my house. The feng shui had to change, you know what I'm saying? So it's better lighting in here. It's better, like a better how would I say, space just overall, okay? So this particular movie, it was called VH1's Man in the Mirror, the Michael Jackson story. If I recall correctly, this was made in 2004 and it starred Flex Alexander playing Michael Jackson or portraying the role of Michael Jackson in the movie. As everyone knows that it's a let me start by saying this. I gotta okay. I would like to say that to portray the king of pop, the arguably one of the best entertainers of all time, the best entertainer on planet Earth, even though he's not here anymore, like physically, is a tough task. But I heard Flex Alexander's story on why he chose the role, why he went through with it, and it sounded like he regretted taking a role. But I have to point some things out. And I just, wanted to share my thoughts and opinions on this particular situation when it comes to this movie. This was arguably one of the most horrible biopics ever created in human history. You're talking about the king of pop, and you're talking about trying to, like, how would I say, emulate or reenact, or however you want to say, his mannerisms, his dance moves, his voice, his appearance. That's a tough act to follow. But Jafar killed it. You know what I'm saying? And that's MJ's nephew, but that's neither here or there. But Jafar got the gift. Apparently he's very talented, and he's very similar to his uncle. I would say in spirit when it comes to like just having a gentle nature, and obviously the talent runs through the family. And I love Janet Jackson. She's amazing too. Very amazing artist. But let's jump back into talk about this. Um, this particular movie, you could tell that they were working with a lower budget, from my understanding, and the makeup was horrible. The outfits weren't really up to par compared to other Michael Jackson biopics, such as the Jacksons and American Dream, which included talking about Michael Jackson, the Jackson Five, and the parents of the Jackson family members, such as Catherine Jackson and Joseph Jackson, or Joe Jackson. So this was totally different. It wasn't as fully fleshed out as the other biopics. So it was, like I said, to portray, or to, I would say, try to step in the shoes of trying to Um, I would say impersonate the king of pop. You got to be on top of your shit, okay? And this budget did not allow Flex Alexander to really, to me, do his best. He worked with what he had, and I'm not trying to take sides or anything. What he worked with, what he had when it came to the lack of resources and maybe a bad script and possibly um like just not having the right budget overall, like I mentioned before. And when it came to, I think the wigs, the curly wig wasn't bad, like the Jerry curl wig. But I think the straighter hair wigs in that particular biopic, it wasn't quite hitting the mark. But to me, although Flex does not look like Michael Jackson at all, I think when it came to the dancing, he did have that down. Because if y'all don't know, Flex Alexander not only is an like a comedian and actor, he was also a dancer. So check this out. I just did a review on Juice, right? And he was in Juice. And matter of fact, I just watched Juice earlier. And Flex Alexander was in there. He was supposed to be one of the DJs that was auditioning for like the DJ battle that was coming up in the movie, you know, because Q ended up he ended up auditioning too. But Flex Alexander's character in the movie Juice had got into an argument with Queen Latifah's character. I forgot their character names. And he was looking like, man, why you reject my shit? Basically, like, my shit was dope in so many words. And she looking like, according to who Queen Latifah's character was like, shit, who lied and told you that your shit was whack? It was messy. It you know, you just ain't got it, boo. Like, you just ain't got the DJ skills, you know what I'm saying? And your shit was trash, basically, in so many words. It was crazy. It was fun. Like, the scene, you would have to see the scene. I know a lot of y'all have seen this scene. And he was like, fuck you. And she said, you would have had a chance if that shit wasn't so whack or something like that. And it was funny. And she looking like, next. But yeah, Flex used to be a dancer back in the day. So from, I don't remember all the interviews and stuff that he's done or had done, even recently or in the past when he talked about this movie. I don't remember word for word verbatim, but he was saying that, you know, of course, obviously, I knew too from back in the 90s when I saw him do stand up, like on Showtime at the Apollo and other, you know, things he was on. You know, he was on Homeboys from Outer Space, One on One, and he's been in some other movies. I see he's on Tubi now doing movies, which is great. And I like when people put people on and give them, you know, some work. And that, I think that's cool. Um, but he really do love MJ. Like, he could dance like MJ. He used to emulate him, or he used to like mimic his dance moves and stuff. So that part was like on point. But I noticed that he was way taller than MJ. I think Flex is like, isn't he like 6'4" or something? And Michael Jackson, some people argue, say he was 5'9". Some people say he was 5'11", but I thought he was supposed to be 5'11". From my understanding, that's what most people say. But yeah, so like, and plus, although, and it's funny because although both, like, back then Michael Jackson was like brown skin or like milk chocolate or whatever, you know, and Flex was around the same color as Michael Jackson then when we first started off the movie. Because from my understanding, they started from like the very, like, they sped through the Jackson 5 part, like showing when Michael Jackson was a boy with the Jackson 5, his brother, who are his brothers. And Oh yeah, R.I.P. Tito, because he passed away last year, I believe. Or I know it was not very long ago, but R.I.P. to Tito because he's no longer here with us either. So we lost Michael and Tito, unfortunately, and of course, R.I.P. to Joe Jackson. So you know what I mean. Um, but they started off with that particular I guess it was like a little montage, and they were showing him as a little boy, and Diana Ross uh came to him in his dreams or something as the movie was opening, and then you would see a shadow that looked like a coat rack with a hat on it, but then it's like it was weird, y'all. It was funny because it was like a coat rack with a hat on it, but it was like the shadow ended up turning into, I guess you would say, Michael Jackson when he started like pretty much riding high in his career, and he was um enjoying the success from the album Thriller, and he basically was doing phenomenal. Like he had some record breaking sales in music history when it came to the album Thriller. He sold, wasn't it like over 60 million records at the time or something like that. But the thing is though is that I noticed while they were, I'm not trying to review everything blow by blow, but just important things that I noticed. Pretty much while Flex was performing as Michael Jackson in the movie, you'll notice that they used a lot of generic music, generic instrumentals, or instrumentation, or however you want to put it. So with the generic instrumentals, I believe there was an issue maybe with some copyright material, like maybe they could not use, or they did not have permission to use Michael Jackson's actual music. I'm quite sure they didn't, because Michael Jackson nor his family, from my understanding, approved this biopic at all. Not like they did with the Jacksons and American Dream. Now that was a totally different situation. And oops, excuse me, you would notice like in the movie, whenever there was like a concert or performance, the backdrop looked very almost like a high school musical type of play or theater type of situation. It was very generic and very like much like they went to a theater and just grabbed whatever props they could to make it look as realistic as possible. But when you don't have the budget, you have to work with what you got. Okay. So, even like some of the, I believe, let's see, they show him and his brothers perform. I think, I know for sure once when they became just the Jacksons. After so long, once they left Motown, I think they went to Epic Records, y'all. I can't remember. I think they did. After so many albums they had with Motown, they had to change their names from the Jackson 5 to just the Jacksons. And that's when, from my understanding, they did the albums Destiny and was it Victory, and wasn't that like 2300 Jackson Street? That was pretty good too. Um, but there have been some issues within the group around that time. So, in the movie, you would see that there was tension between Michael and his brothers because he said, and they did this in a newer biopic too, called just simply called Michael, where he was like, oh, this is going to be our final tour together, and thank you for the 20 years, and it's all love, and blah, 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 because his brothers were looking like, what the hell are you doing? In the middle of a fucking, performance, live performance, you know. They didn't know what the hell was going on. But if y'all look into it about the victory tour and all that, it was a whole bunch of fool la la, bunch of shit going on behind the scenes. But anyway, so as the movie progressed, you'll notice that Flex Alexander's portrayal of Michael Jackson made Michael look very docile, emotionally immature, childlike, almost like he was a little slow or like maybe a, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, like he was on a spectrum or something, but I think they kind of over exaggerated Michael's, well, had Flex over exaggerate Michael's personality a bit to keep the attention throughout the movie. Um, what it was, and I'm just gonna be honest with you, and I'm not trying to have like um like kiss anybody's ass or anything, but I think they called themselves trying to make Michael Jackson look innocent, and they kind of overdid it with the make him look so, you know, uh, soft and vulnerable, and almost like they made him look like he was, a weakling, like he didn't have a backbone, like he didn't know right from wrong. They really played on a childlike persona that most people thought Michael Jackson had. Here's the thing, Michael Jackson was not meek like people thought. Like he wasn't weak willed and like a pushover like people thought. Michael Jackson had some balls from my understanding. Like he didn't play with, certain people and stuff. But the thing was, um, it was weird. I'm not even gonna lie. It was kind of like they wanted to make him look innocent, but then on like when it came to some scenes, they made it seem like, was he really capable of doing some of this stuff that he was falsely accused of? Because as we know, they never found any true evidence or to claim that he was guilty. He was proven to be innocent. So when it came to these allegations about, I'm going to say when it came to the allegations of underage people, okay? So it's really weird because it was almost like at some points of the movie, they were like trying to prove how innocent Michael was and showing how he was just so nice and just so, almost like his head was in the clouds at times, like he didn't know any better. But that wasn't necessarily the case. Michael Jackson was just too damn nice to people, and he felt sorry for people a lot because he just had a big heart. And from what I was looking at, I kind of looked at his natal chart a bit, and I said he was a very sensitive person, sensitive, gentle soul, and people took advantage of that. But in the movie, you would have thought Michael Jackson was off his rocker, like he was crazy or something, or like mentally unstable to the point he couldn't even make his own sound judgment or make decisions. But that wasn't the case. We knew Michael Jackson wasn't like that, to the point where he just seemed like he just didn't have good damn sense or something. Okay, so moving right along, um they showed the scene but not really flushed it out like in its entirety when it came to the Pepsi um incident, as I like to call it, where Michael Jackson's hair caught fire because of the pyrotechnics. They really didn't show his head getting caught on fire, hair getting caught on fire, apparently because of budget. They show him do like this generic dance to this generic it was like drum solo that somebody was doing or something. But of course, I'm talking about like in the backdrop of the music or what of the scene or whatever. Uh, so it was just like pretty much in the background music. That's what I'm trying to say. Was it sound like a a generic instrumentation or instrumental of someone just playing drums. Then we lead to the scene where we obviously know this is about the Pepsi incident, and we see him in a hospital, and it was a female plastic surgeon. I thought the surgeon wasn't a female that corrected his scalp, and they also show him getting a nose job a little later. I think a little later on after that, and it was just some interesting stuff going on, y'all. And oh my god, they had, when it came to the skin complexion situation, it was horrible because they had his skin looking like chalk. Like some scenes you could tell it was supposed to be certain eras, like maybe this was supposed to be in the thriller era or the bad era. But this the thing, they were kind of going, the skin complexions was off with certain eras that he was in. Like for example, we knew that his skin complexion, Michael Jackson's skin complexion, changed completely around the bad era. He started getting really light complected or light skinned. He became lighter. And we found out obviously the reason behind that was because of vitiligo. He was trying to even out his skin complexion. That's what he said. But it is true, and it said it on an autopsy report. The autopsy report that he did have vitiligo, and plus, I mean, the dermatologist had confirmed it while Mike was living anyway. So you will see sometimes they will like not be in sync with the era, like his looks in certain eras, like they will go back and forth with the skin complexion and the look or appearance. um some scenes they just had um Flex looking like he was, like I said, like they had him acting like he was on the spectrum or a little bit slow, a little bit, because when he came into and I'm not laughing about that, I'm just laughing about how ridiculous some of the acting was. It was crazy. Because one scene, he had came into the room, right, to visit this boy who he befriended or whatever, and I can't remember if he was related to one of the women that worked for him. And he came in the room like like Charlie Chaplin, but it was so goofy. Like that's what it was. They had him acting extra goofy, right? And I was like, I know Michael was a big kid at heart, but was he really this? Like, it was like I didn't know which parts of the movie to take seriously and which ones I shouldn't have been taking that seriously. At times I was getting confused, like the lines were blurred for me, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? And it was crazy, y'all. And then on top of that, like, cause I remember he told the boy, "I'm gonna call you 100 times a day," and this and that, and and somebody like, an old boy, I think one of that same boy or another boy or something was like, "Yeah, this will mark our 30th anniversary or something. 30 times sleeping over, with each other or whatever, and blah 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 blah." And then I think that was the one of the people that worked for Mike on his team was like, what do you guys have in common? And Mike was like, "Oh, in the movie, we got a lot in common. We like blah blah blah. We like video games. We like ice cream and some crazy shit." It was just like, really? And he was just acting like a a giddy little schoolboy or something. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, it was just some little weird parts like that. And I remember this one scene where there was a boy that Mike had come over to Neverland or whatever, and his mother in the movie, who the woman who was portraying Katherine Jackson, was like, she was like, "Son, he's not a Jehovah's Witness," because Mike said, "You're gonna be one of the, was it the 144,000 or one something like that, that's going to heaven or something." I It's probably the wrong number, but and she was like, "But Mike, he's not a Jehovah's Witness, and this and this and this." And I'm looking like, damn, this boy is sick. He got a terminal illness, and you worried about that shit? Like, you don't. That's not up for you to decide if that child gonna make it to heaven or not. You not God, okay? And that pissed me off. And then it was another scene too. It was just some stuff that just made me go, ugh, just irked me. Um, what was the one too? Oh, the guy who played Joe Jackson. He was talking about when you gonna understand that the Jacksons ain't just about you. And he was like, yeah, when you gonna get it through your, I think he said your thick head and your big nose and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wow. It had him like a real slime ball, but then a lot of people would say Joe Jackson was, obviously he was a, mean spirited person. He was very abusive in many ways to one. But this guy, oh my God, he looked nothing like Joe Jackson. He didn't really sound like him. And I mean, I guess if you say he was good at being a jerk, I guess he executed the job to some people, but I wasn't really moved. The best Joe Jackson I've seen thus far is, honestly, I love Coleman Domingo, don't get me wrong, but the best portrayal of Joe Jackson is that damn Lawrence Hilton Jacobs. Bitch, I was by red. Ooh, he made me so mad when I saw, oh my God, every time I watched the Jackson's an American Dream, ooh, girl, but anyway, then Coleman Domingo. Oh boy. Yeah, they was something else. Them two Joe Jacksons. But that damn Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, girl, shit. He was the best one. Cause he pissed me off. Like for real. I was like, he is in this role. But I know it's just acting. But that's how you know you can act your ass off. When you got me like, this motherfucker, Whew. But anyway, on to the next. Yeah, they had Michael looking crazy here, and it was just like they had him acting like he just wasn't playing with a full deck. And another thing that I noticed too, like when he started messing around with Lisa Marie Presley, the bodyguard was asking him, he said, yeah, have you thought about hooking up with her? Because this was after the allegations, because they did bring up about the allegations in here. They was asking these little boys, like, did he do this and that to you? What did he say to you? And all this other stuff. And after all that went down, I think one of his bodyguards was like, have you thought about hooking up with a woman, like dating or whatever right now? Pretty much you get some of that smoke off your back. You know what I'm saying? And Lisa Marie Presley obviously was available. He had known her before, and they had hit it off pretty good. And next thing you know, they had gotten married. And the bodyguard who he was close to at the time, he was like, so, like, what is it about her? You know what I'm saying? That will she make you feel like a man? And Michael Jackson was like, no. In the movie, he was like, she just made me feel like I could just be me. But he was like, no. Kind of like, like, almost like, that's what it was, y'all. They were trying to make Michael Jackson appear like he was asexual, like he wasn't really attracted to women or something, or anybody, like he wasn't sexually attracted to the opposite sex or anything. But then sometimes it seemed like they try to play in your face and make it seem like, is this motherfucker guilty? Like the character, like just it, that's what I was getting from it. It was weird. They also showed his children like Paris and what's his name, Prince Michael and Blanket, and they showed when he dangled Blanket over the banister, but he was holding the baby tight. But still, it was just like, ugh, like people dragged him for that shit. Everybody was like, yo, what is going on with Mike? What's going on with Michael Jackson? What's going on with MJ? It was like people really thought he fell off the deep end. Also, they talked about him going to rehab because he had an addiction to, was it pills or something? Yeah, pain pills because of his accident with his head being caught on fire. That was something he dealt with lifelong. And just overall, like, they skated over a lot of scenes that they could have really put a lot of effort and energy into. We also got introduced to Debbie Rowe, who was the mother of his children and also his second wife. Um, well, she wasn't, correction, she was not Blanket's mother. Blanket has a different mother, but his first two children, Paris and Prince Michael, I believe. Yeah, his first, she was the mother to his first two children. So, they were friends, and it was basically like friends doing each other a favor. Hey, I want to have kids. Are you available for that? Hey, I just want a family. We don't have to be all madly in love and all that. Let's just do it. Basically. Um, they also show, and I know I'm jumping around here, Lisa Marie Presley being pissed off because Michael spent a lot of time with children. He still didn't learn his lesson from the other allegations because people was looking like, why don't you chill, from the 1993 allegations. And that's what some more shit happened in 2004 with the other boy. What was his name? Arvizo, something Arvizo. Um, that's when that situation came. That's why everybody was looking like it was this one guy named Ziggy. He was trying to tell him, Mike, just leave these people alone. Quit trying to help everybody, save everybody. These people are using you, manipulating you. And it was just crazy. They showed us him spending a lot of time at Neverland Ranch and stuff. And they basically tried to make him look like an innocent saint overall, but the acting was not executed correctly, in my opinion, because it was poor acting, poor costumes, poor, what you would call that, like when it came to, like, they didn't have any of Michael Jackson's original music. That took away from the authenticity of the movie. And the lady who played Diana Ross didn't look shit like Diana Ross. The guy who played Joe Jackson didn't look shit like Joe Jackson. Flex Alexander did not look like Michael Jackson at all whatsoever. And it's funny because they said that in a movie that Michael was supposed to have a nose job, but where did his nose still looked the same throughout the whole movie. That's the shit I'm talking about. And it was something else I was thinking about. They showed when they came in and raided Neverland, from my understanding. That was a brief scene. From what I remember, I believe they did raid Neverland because of that 2004 situation with that boy. And something else. I'm thinking of some other stuff too. That could have just went better. Like I said, overall, it was giving me something like low budget Tubi movies are better than this in the case. In this case. And the thing is that even though they, like, of course they were talking about him being a victim of tabloids and them, making fun of him basically when it came to how the way he lived his life. Of course, because he was very eccentric, because he had a lot of big exotic animals. on Neverland. Well, at Havenhurst first, and then Neverland. Um, he had a fascination with children, I guess you would say, or not in a like that type of way, not in a, you know, sexual way, but he was obsessed with living out his childhood and also trying to protect every child he could help. You know what I'm saying? Um, that's why he created Neverland from the beginning, so that it could be like a safe haven or refuge when he was trying to relive his childhood, um, and just escape the noise from being a very famous person, the most famous person in the world at that time. And it was just a lot. He faced a lot of public scrutiny. I remember even people was arguing, saying stuff about Michael Jackson's sexuality and his sexual orientation even back in the 80s. Like, I went back and looked at some of the archives, and like I said, they did talk about the allegations and the legal battles he faced in the movie, and it was just a wild ride. Honestly, that movie was it they could have kept that. We didn't really get a chance to see him in the studio performing or anything like that, like in certain parts, or actually reenacting some of the videos like we did in this new biopic, Michael. Um, they named the film The Man in the Mirror, okay, but if you think about it, it's crazy because he has a song called Man in the Mirror, which comes from the Bad album. Um, he faced a lot of public judgment, ridicule. People ridicule and mocked Michael Jackson a lot. And this film covers that too. He went through a lot. He also we it's like we saw the rise and the fall of Michael Jackson in this film, but they could have did a lot more if they had the budget, and if they may have made a different choice. um I think Flex might have been the only option for this role, because I think a lot of people did not want to play this role. I'm not even sure if a lot of Michael Jackson impersonators even wanted to take on this role, because they would have probably felt like they were doing Michael Jackson a disservice. And it felt like a mockumentary versus a biopic. Like it just was, you know, it talked about the different transformations he made physically and even personality wise. And I'm starting to think too, were they trying to hint that when he had that accident while he was performing on the set of the Pepsi commercial, that altered something in his personality and made him kind of snap, because he did start taking painkillers. That pain was excruciating. He had like third-degree burns on his scalp, and he was abused as a child, so that affected his personality as well too, on top of the legal issues. And it's kind of like they were trying to show how all these things made his life unravel. Okay. Obviously, yeah. It was a lot that came along with having fame when it came to being Michael Jackson, because I really do not think, in my opinion, this was a true story about Michael Jackson and in its entirety. I think it was the perception of how people view Michael Jackson, to me, more than anything, because it seemed almost comical. Like in a lot of scenes, it felt comical and just like really. So, how would I say this? Michael, you could tell the reason why he was connecting with a lot of outside people or people outside his circle of his normal family, I guess normal circle of family and friends, was because he was looking for a connection maybe that he felt like he didn't have with his own family anymore, and he wanted to feel something that felt real or genuine to him. And maybe he felt like these people who may have had less than him or may have been going through some problems appreciated his presence more, and that's what I took from it. um these people, for the most part, who he was helping, a lot of them turned against him, and it was fake love. It was never true love, like them coming in loving him like family. It was about a money grab, scheming, um being just evil and nasty towards him, tearing him down, causing smear campaigns, damaging his reputation. And it was just a messy situation. But overall, the movie, you could tell it was a TV movie. Um, Honestly, Michael Jackson went from being a meteoric superstar to becoming a walking, talking, breathing headline because people talked about him so badly that it's like they treated him like he was a damn alien or something at certain times of his life, especially towards the later years, from like the 90s up until his death. To me, he went through a lot of shit. That's why some people said the media, excuse me, practically killed him in a sense, you know, and the industry allegedly too. I felt like, see, this is the thing where this, what I believe went wrong. I think Flex was trying too hard to um act too much like Michael Jackson, instead of focusing on acting and making it look more realistic to the camera, like his you know, like to bring Michael Jackson to life on camera. I think he focused too much on the mannerisms and the voice, which he had that down pat, in the dance moves. But there was a disconnect with a lot of things, and this movie, it wasn't a fan favorite, and I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm so glad they remade, well, they came out with another biopic because it was needed to me. Um, Here's the thing. To me, this version of telling Michael Jackson's story, it really didn't do any justice for Michael's legacy. But anyway, my name is High Priestess Tana, and I'm about to sign off. And I hope y'all enjoyed this review. It was hard to get through because I was like, this movie just really wasn't a lot to talk about. It was bad. Like that makeup, that pasty looking makeup was fucking horrible. And like I said, I ain't trying to put everything on Flex because it wasn't totally his fault. There were other people involved. They could have made this shit better. All right, peace, y'all. Have a beautiful rest of y'all night. If I don't see y'all tomorrow or the rest or throughout the weekend, I'll catch up with y'all sooner than later. Peace. Love y'all.